One simple change can actually change the course of your business. That's what I learned speaking to Jim D'Amico. He is the CEO and president of Century 21 Northeast. He went from being a RealTrends Gamechanger in 2020, which is an award we give for transaction side percentage growth over 5 years. He grew 179%. At that time, he had 30 offices, and now he is already up to 72 offices in 11 different states. The one change he made actually happened earlier in his career, and that was quitting alcohol. And he said it really changed the trajectory of his business, and the proof is in the growth that he's had. We also talk about some of the challenges of the market, and really we talk mostly about opportunities, where he sees opportunities for growth. He acquired some Coldwell Banker offices, and in addition to the Century 21, how he's educating people or his agents on all of the changes coming up, and just what's next for their company, and how he's managing through all of the changes right now. So enjoy the podcast. Jim, welcome to the Real Trending Podcast.
Thank you, Tracy. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so it was 4 years ago you were named a RealTrends Gamechanger, and that is growth by transaction side percentage over 5 years. You had grown 179%, which is huge. So I wanted to find out what you're doing now. I know that you've acquired a couple more companies, and you're growing fast. So tell me a little bit about your growth and what's been going on since then.
Sure. So 2020, I was unexpectedly the recipient of a Game Changer award. I didn't even realize that we had done all that and had grown 179%. But in 2020, obviously, we had the COVID experience. And towards the back half of 2020, we kind of just started getting back into the, who we were, what are we going to be? And, what's our plan moving forward? We did a pretty good job growing to that point. But 2020 was a quiet year. And right around the end of 2020, we started to figure out if we just wanted to stay in New England. So we had been just a Massachusetts brokerage for, 20 years, 25 years, and then expanded into New Hampshire and Maine and Rhode Island and Connecticut. In 2020, towards the end of 2020, early 21, we opened up in Florida. So it was our very first location in Florida. It was a Lakewood Ranch. Since that time, we've added 7 locations in Florida. We're in all the key spots that I think you need to be. And then from there, we started developing a market for ourselves in upstate New York. So we've, at this point, have, I believe it's 9 locations in upstate and western New York. So we have the whole Buffalo region and Binghamton. So we have a really great group of agents and staff in that market. And then fast forward to, to now we're in, we have 8 offices in Texas. We have the San Antonio region, College Station, Austin, kind of trying to get into Houston. And then we've also established in Illinois. In Illinois, we have a couple of locations, Century 21. And then at the beginning of this year, we became brand bilingual, and we acquired 5 Coldwell Bankers in northern Pennsylvania, northeast Pennsylvania, so Scranton, that whole territory. And we have an awesome group of people in that market as well. So that's where we are.
So are they, how many agents total do you have?
We have about 1,850 agents total.
And do you know how many offices?
I don't count them, but I think it's 72.
Okay. So what are you still actively acquiring, or are you looking at walkovers, or are you really changing your focus at all to, I know you're always focusing on agent productivity, but like a deeper focus on that. Tell me where you're going from here. Do you plan on continuing to expand to other markets, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always been somebody that's been open to opportunities wherever they are, right? So if the opportunity is a good opportunity, we'll look hard at it. If it's something that, we've gotten several opportunities in the past couple months that we've said no to, I think it just depends. We told our agents our focus, and this has been our focus, is to, really focus on our company, our people, how to better serve our agents, and how to, really kind of streamline economies of scale and really look at the big picture. In the meantime, we've had opportunities that were like, okay, we got to take advantage of this. This fits into what we're doing. So I think I'm kind of a go with the flow type of a leader in that regard. Like I'm always open to a conversation.
What has been the biggest challenge that you've had, growing so quickly?
Well, I think I'm fortunate that I have a great team around me. So we've really put together just an amazing team. And as we've grown, we've added key members to that team. So not only are we getting a new office or a new market, we're also getting whoever that star is of that show that can help us in our company. So challenge wise, I mean, I think challenge is always going to be being able to scale, right? So being able to provide the services, which I think we've done a pretty good job of, but it has been a challenge. I think that we've done a really good job with training, marketing. Our leads division has been really strong, but as you grow, like you have to get another website, you have to join a few more MLSs, you have to make sure that everything's syncing. So that stuff is always a challenge, but we've gotten really good at it.
Yeah. And as you grow, are you acquiring like Century 21 offices already, or are you acquiring independents that are moving to Century 21?
Pretty much a little bit of everything. So
Okay.
obviously the biggest acquisition target for us was Century 21 offices because it just was a great culture fit. But moving forward, we've been able to, acquire independent companies, other branded companies that want to switch over to our brand. So, I mean, we've done a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And I know you were an instructor at one point, and I know there have been a ton of changes going on with compensation and how agents are paid. And I think there's a lot of confusion around that too. So how are you handling that, spread out as you are to really help agents understand what they can and can't do, what to expect, and how to talk to buyers and sellers about compensation?
Yeah. So, I mean, you nailed it. It's, that this has been a challenging time for the industry. A lot of people don't know exactly what they're doing. So it's challenging because we have to not only educate our buyers, our sellers, our agents, but we also have to educate the co-broke or the buyer's agent or the listing agent and try to make it all work. So we've been training on this topic for a couple of years. We've been very well aware of the class action, very well aware of the options of which way it could go. We're also not like alarmists. We feel like, let's go with the flow until the changes occur, and then we'll make those changes. I would say we try to stay 2 or 3 steps ahead of it, not 20 steps ahead of it, because as you know, in this industry, things change often. So we don't want to, definitely don't want to be leading the charge when we don't have all the answers. So I think that sometimes can be, we've seen a lot of that happening recently where companies, 6, 7 months ago already started making changes to the way that they do business, which, maybe wasn't the right way to do it. So we try to, we follow along, we stay on top of the topics, and we try to educate our agents accordingly. We train every day. So there's not a day that you can't hop on to our education platform and get some training on this topic and, countless others.
Do you have centralized services, or are you still working through that with the other offices that you
No, everything's
recently acquired?
centralized service. So, we will retain staff at acquired companies and put them into a department. So our central services doesn't mean that everyone's physically central, just means that department is centralized. So we may have somebody on the administrative staff in Florida that works with somebody on the administrative staff in Illinois to service the relocation department or, the onboarding division or training department. So closings, et cetera. So that's kind of how we've done it. So yeah, it is centralized, and we've been working on that, as we go, and it's actually, I'm pretty proud of the setup that we have.
And do you find that some states are a little easier to train than others? I was talking to a broker who is in California and Michigan. And she said, Michigan, they've been doing buyer representation agreements all along, whereas California, nobody's doing them. And it's just a really different approach that she has to take to both brokerages. Are you finding that?
I mean, yes and no. So like a lot of this, a lot of the premise of what we're trying to do is pretty common sense, right? So every state's going to have different forms, and we're in 11 states, so we have to watch all the forms, and they'll have little nuances. But again, we try not to create it. We try to work within the within the guidelines of what we're given from each state. But yeah, I mean, they're all a little bit different. I mean, licensing is different, and we deal with that. I have my license in 9 states now. And so, continuing education is always a challenge. I have to get that thing going early. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of realtor associations. We still have a lot of local boards. I think we're in like 40 or 50 realtor associations. I think it would be great if we could get that down to 10 or, by state or something. But, it's everybody has, that there's a lot of hands. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen right now. So I think that, our job is to just best educate the agents that we have so that they can educate their buyers and sellers.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are your agents saying? Are they hearing from buyers and sellers about this? Are they getting questions, or is it still kind of business as usual?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? So I think buyers and sellers are definitely bringing it up. I think that they're definitely asking the questions. I think that we all know that this is going to be a seller and, buyer decision moving forward. So like, how do they want to go ahead and sell their home, and we can educate them to the pros and cons of doing it one way versus another. But really at the end of the day, it's always been the seller's decision, and same with the buyers. Do they want to be represented, or do they want to try to go it alone? And I think that that's, that gives the buyer a couple different choices. But I also think that the service that we provide is still, extremely valuable to buyers and sellers. I don't think they can do it as well without a professional realtor. So I think that we're just going to keep being available to provide that service, and I think people will choose it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm hearing all kinds of things out there. Like some people have said, nope, haven't heard a thing about it. It's kind of been business as usual. We're changing how we're presenting things and the transparency, but nobody's questioning it. And then I hear others who have sellers who are like, I'm not paying paying that buyer's
Right.
agent. And, they have to really work with them to help them understand, the pros and cons of making the choice that they're making. So, and then I've heard one broker who's like insisting that what's going to happen is the compensation is not going to be in the MLS, and one of their agents is going to come to them and say, "Hey, why isn't there compensation in the MLS anymore?"
Right.
So, so it's really interesting across the board. Really, I guess depends on how professional you are as an agent and how much you're really, attending
Right.
those sessions and that too.
I think that's the biggest thing, right, Tracy? Because so many
Yeah.
agents just don't want to pay attention to the things that are happening in the industry, and they're, quote unquote, dabbling in real estate or whatever. And we've been really diligent about getting our agents to pay attention. I mean, that's the only thing that, that we're really, laser focused on. It's like, you need to pay attention. You need to know what's going on, because the reality is if there is no compensation and they don't recognize that from the jump, then they may do work for free. And like, that's something that they just need to understand, because that's all about paying attention. And so we can't get too far along without agents, knowing what they're doing from the start. That's something that I think you're going to find that a lot moving forward in this industry. I think there's a lot of agents out there, and there's rosters with as many agents on one roster as I have in my whole company, with 70 plus rosters, right? So, the reason for that for us is we like to keep it relatively small per office so that people can be connected and there could be a culture fit inside the office. And we still believe in having brick and mortar offices. We have agents that are using them, and Yeah, they're not using them as much as they used to, but it's definitely a benefit to an agent to have a place to go, to have a private meeting with the client, to have a printing available so that they can print their CMAs if they choose, or they want to print some contracts. Those things I think are still valuable, and that's part of the service we provide.
Yeah. And tell me about affiliated services, and are you looking at any new services moving forward?
Well, that's been quite an adventure for us. So, mortgage has always been something that's been in my family. My brother ran New Fed Mortgage. My brother in 2022 suffered a bad car accident. Still laid up and not able to, do his job at that level. So I've been helping out a lot on that end. So mortgage has been, really great for us. We're growing, separately as a company, seem to be growing along the same lines as the Century 21 and Coldwell Banker side. We have an insurance company that my sister runs, and we also are now opening a title company with some great partners that are good, that are pretty much all over the country, but key in the states that we're in. So things like that. We do property management, which has been really good, and then the last couple of years been focusing on a passion of mine, which is our 501c3. We have a 501c3 that helps people get back on their feet, people in recovery. We just opened our first sober living facility in Danvers, Massachusetts, called the Redemption House. And, we're housing 13 men and, trying to help them get back on their feet to, long-term housing.
Are you looking to expand that to the other states that you're in, or are you already doing some work? You just have the sober living space in one state.
Yeah, I think again, right, to go with the flow and when the opportunity arises. So this particular property was really unique. It's a farm. It's got a couple of barns. It just really lends itself to a retreat style, center. And so that's something that, we were passionate about, and we've gotten that off the ground, and it's been a really great experience. Not to say I want to do 100 of them or 70 of them, but, if there is an opportunity to help people, we do some shelter work in Chelsea, Massachusetts. We've, the YMCA building that my dad refinished and made that as like a homeless diversion shelter, which has been fantastic. We bought another house for a women's homeless diversion shelter. So I think it's just when the opportunity strikes and we have the ability to make a difference, we're trying to do that nowadays, which feels good.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the market is changing and the industry is changing. There's a lot going on. So where do you look? How are you staying ahead of industry changes and kind of adapting to the market dynamics?
I mean, I think, this has been something that we've been dealing with. I've been in the business for 30. I'm going on my 30th year as a franchisee. So I've seen so many things in the industry. And I remember back, when I started and new companies would come in and brokers would say, well, that's not going to last, and that's not going to last, and that's not going to last. Well, guess what? Everything lasts. It doesn't seem like anything doesn't last, right? So I think the thing that's fascinating about it is all of the different ways that companies can offer agents compensation and support, working off the same number, right, of 100% of a dollar. And so it's really interesting to me because I'm fascinated with concepts. I think I get really into the different concepts. And I think that there's some great concepts out there, and there's some ones that I've tried to take into what we do, put a spin on it. For more of a, from the traditional side to this virtual side, right? I like to think that we kind of sit just over the line in the middle, right? So just a little more off the traditional, but with a lot of traditional values. And so I think that the changes will just keep coming. I mean, we had the big change when Zillow came in, and we had the big change when EXP came in, and all these different companies. And, it just levels, it just kind of levels the play field. It makes it competitive. It makes it fun. I got the picture of the two goalies behind me, right? So these two guys, they compete for the same job every single night, day in, day out. These two goalies for the Boston Bruins, they compete every night. And whoever's playing the game, if they win, they come out and they do a great big hug because they support each other. So I like to think that that's like the feeling that I have towards my competitors in the industry, like, hey, great job, very impressive, I love that, I love what you're doing. That type of thing. I think there's enough business to go around, and I think that everybody has. There's a lot of great ideas out there, and there's some silly ones, but that's what makes it all interesting.
Absolutely. I think competition is good. And I do agree with you. There's plenty of business to go around. And agents, they have to choose the right model for them, and experiment as well with what might be right for them. So, it's always good to have choices.
Yes, agreed.
So I want to talk about any books, thought leaders, podcasts, anything you're listening to right now or have read that really has inspired your leadership.
I mean, lately I've just been really focused on like, mentality, right? So just, staying calm in a turbulent environment, stoicism, the daily stoic, things like that. I really connect with. I think this job can be, as a leader and an owner of multiple offices and dealing with, I usually get most of the problems, but I also get like the good stuff too. But it's funny because when you're coming up in this, when I was coming up in this business, I would have looked at a Game Changer award and been like, oh, how do I get one of those? And now it's like, well, yeah, that's awesome, but how can I still be better? I just want to be better, right? With me and, focusing on that and focusing on balance and work-life balance and just, having enough time for family and kids and helping and those types of things. So I think that's where I'm really channeling my energy these days. I love what I do. I think I could do it for a very long time. I've been doing it for 30 years. I think I could go another 30, as long as I can keep my balance in place and, kind of ebb and flow with the tide, because it's always going to be coming one way or another.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. So I want you to share, you're going to get vulnerable here. Share a significant setback that you faced and some of the lessons that it taught you.
I've had, I've had a lot of setbacks. I will tell you that. I've had a really tough time in the recession, and it wasn't prepared for it. I was only was in my 30s, and when I got into the business, it just kept going up. So I had no idea that it actually also comes back down. I was a little young, naive, maybe a little cocky, and I was humbled by that experience. So much so that like it's been my focus. It's never left my head that I need to be prepared. And I feel like this last couple of years has been similar to that to that time that we had. And we've been super prepared, and we've been growing in the face of, adversity. I think for the industry, adversity with the economy and different things like that. So I think that was probably a huge setback. And then, just personally and just from what I've experienced in my life, I'm 10 years sober in December. I chose to eliminate drinking alcohol from my life. And I think that has a lot to do with my growth, as a leader, as a company, and as a human being. I think that it's changed the way I live my life and changed the way I lead and changed the way. And the proof is in the numbers, right? You're doing 8 million in 2013. You quit drinking in 2014 at 8 million. And, we're going to do 70 million this year in gross revenue. So, I think that, the proof is in that. I like that life. I like this lifestyle a lot better. So, yeah, lots of challenges though, Tracy. If you need another hour, I have a podcast that
Yeah.
and we talk about those challenges. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on 10 years. That is wonderful. So,
Appreciate it.
so
Thank
yeah. Was there, I don't know if this is too personal, but I'm going to ask, what was like your trigger? What made you decide I've got to change my life?
I think I was just tired of being tired, right? So I was just like, I thought that, when I got into business, like you're supposed to go out after work and network, and everything was a networking event. And I don't even think it's like that. And it probably is the same as it was then, right? But it just, I take it differently, right? So I go to a networking event now, I'm home by 7 o'clock, where in the past, in those days, if I went to a networking event, it would be, it would be pretty late at night before that would be over. So I think I just saw something had to change in order for me to make a difference in what I wanted to do. I was tired of running in place with the business, and just, personally just felt like I could use some time to grow and see how I could better live my life. And I gave it a shot, and it's worked out pretty well. Still challenging, but it works out pretty well. I'm a lot happier, I can tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely. I bet. Yeah, we're not big drinkers in our house, so like we're,
Yeah,
the wine with dinner, we just don't really do it. So we might
right.
have a glass going out if we go out, but yeah.
Yeah,
So,
no, I mean,
yeah.
all my friends still, they still partake, and they don't do it like I did it, right? So when people
Yeah.
didn't do it like I watch, and I'm like, geez, I wasn't like that. I could never have done it like that. So, and I think that, I think even in the way I work, the style of my work, it's like I always want to do more, right? I always want to make that extra phone call. So with that type of a personality trait, it's kind of hard to do things that aren't good for you because you're going to tend to do them too much. So I try to focus on things that are good for me and do those too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. That's good. Good
Yeah.
philosophy.
It's good
So,
for Century 21 and Mike Mealer and the brand.
yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Mike's great.
He is.
So I just saw him at NAREP and we sat down, had a really
Oh,
good
now
conversation. So
that's my favorite organization.
yeah.
I'm very involved with NAREP, and a lot of my agents are in leadership. And San Antonio, where we just opened up, has a huge NAREP chapter, and some of our loan originators are involved in that, and some of our agents. So I have a lot of heart for that organization.
Yeah, well, they Century 21 had a huge presence there because I think Nora is the
Right.
president this year, and then
Americana. Yep.
yeah, there were a couple of other Century 21 in leadership or in the succession as well. So
Yeah. A lot of them, we have a few here, and, they've just been, I think that that's another reason why we've been able to grow, is because our agents are like our business partners. We treat them as business partners. We run our business alongside them, and we give them the platform to do what they want to do and be creative. But at the same time, we work it together. So I work with a lot of business owners. I consider my agents and team leaders to be business owners. And that's where my focus is, on helping them grow their business and how to be more successful, but also how to make sure that they're doing things correctly. They're not growing too fast, that they're saving their money, and different things that I had to learn. I'm trying to share with some of our top team leaders and agents, and we have some of the best in the country. So it's awesome to see what they do nationally, because they make such a big impact nationally, and they're part of us, and it's a great feeling.
yeah, I think that recession it made or broke brokers, because they either were prepared and figured it out, and then they became better off because of it. And now, like you are gaining market share in a down market,
Yep.
or they were prepared, or they went out of business. That's what you basically
Right.
had. And a lot of them did go out of business because it was really tough during the Great
I was
Recession.
close. I actually was so burnt out that I didn't even want to be in the business anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I stayed in it. I had to, I'm not much of a quitter. So I know there was days I was like, geez, maybe I should just get out of this business. But, I stuck with it. I started selling houses again, and just to pay the bills, and was able to sell enough houses to keep 9 offices open through the recession. And, yeah, it was, and I think the best thing that came from that was humility. I mean, that's something that, I needed to experience, because it really brought me to where I learned that, this is, we don't get to control what happens. We need to work within what happens. So, yeah, it was tough, but we've really spent a lot of time, my brother and we spent a lot of time talking about it, and we were getting ready for it. And I think that we nailed it.
Well, my last question is just what's next for your family of companies?
Well, I think that we just had our big annual, family night at Fenway with 600 of our closest realtors and loan originators, and it was a good time. And I think what we're going to focus on this summer is, really visiting and, trying to connect our leadership team with our different groups of agents in different markets, do some traveling to Buffalo and Scranton and visit all of our teams and, just kind of really see if we can I'd love to grow more organically this year, spend more time attracting, great agents that want to change their lives and change their business. And I think that we could provide some resources for that. So I guess a little bit of that. And then if something pops up that's exciting, I'll call you first.
Sounds good. So I do have to say I grew up in Buffalo. So where's your office?
So we have offices in Lewiston, Grand Island,
Okay.
which we host the number 2 agent in Century 21 in the whole country, Jerry Andalina, Williamsville, East Aurora, Amherst, Hamburg. All the
Okay, great.
offices in that market.
I grew up in Cheektowaga.
Oh, okay.
But my dad was a state trooper, so he was
Oh, wow.
stationed in several of those cities at one time or another.
We
So
love that market. So there was 3 separate Century 21 companies totaling about 120 agents, and we were able to acquire all 3 separately. And we brought everyone together, and I was out there last summer. We did a big, sales rally, and it was great because these guys all competed, and now they're all under one umbrella, and it's been really fun to watch. It really has been great. I think the people are responding really well. We've enjoyed everyone that we've met up there and worked with. So, and I love the market. Great people up in Buffalo.
yeah, definitely. Well, Jim, thanks so much for joining the podcast and sharing your challenges and your opportunities and all the growth that you've had. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, Tracy. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and it's nice to reconnect.